This excuse started making the rounds, and it just sounded very fake to people like me.
Yeah, I feel a little dumb about expecting him to get nominated this morning, and it turns out he couldn't. Well, I mean, he could, but it would have been based on anything he did up to January 31st of 2025 of this year. In other words, the deadline had passed. Everything that he accomplished in this enormously successful peace achievement, everything, none of that is eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Now that sounds very strange, because when you think about the fact that Barack Obama was nominated and awarded the Peace Prize in the very first year of his presidency, and this rule didn't pop up magically when it was time for Barack Obama to receive his Peace Prize for ending no wars and a few other things which we're going to get into in this video, we smell something really rotten, and it isn't good. And Obama's nomination was based on his early presidential actions and global diplomatic outreach, e.g., his June 2009 Cairo speech was cited retrospectively. Can you smell the BS yet?
CrossroadsIRL.com.
Certainly, if the Nobel Peace Prize Committee knows what's good for them, they do the right thing and nominate him. But also, too, I think that Melania Trump might also have a nomination. I think that she's been very instrumental in discussions with Russia. And also, too, I think that she's going to be a key reason why we're able to broker peace with Ukraine.
On October 9th, 2025, the news came down that President Trump was not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. In this video, we're going to cover why he was rejected and why it matters. Now, before we get started, I would like to ask you to please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the video. It helps out a whole lot. Now, let's get started. Now, let's start with why tons of people thought that President Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. Within his first 10 months in office, he had successfully brokered 7 peace deals and an 8th in the works with the Israel-Gaza peace deal. We have different organizations calling for him to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. We had 70,000 Cambodian Buddhist monks conducting a peaceful march to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. He successfully negotiated the India-Pakistan peace deal, which could have escalated into a horrible nuclear war. He was responsible for the peace deal in Africa, and he's been pushing for peace between Russia and Ukraine since before he took office. Essentially, this president has done nothing but try to bring peace to the whole world, and yet he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. For months, the conversation about him being nominated and him expecting to win the Nobel Peace Prize was in the air, but nothing could have prepared us for the excuses that followed after the Nobel Peace Prize was not awarded to him. More on that soon. Instead, the Peace Prize was awarded to Maria Corina Machado. She said in her post, "This recognition of the struggle of all Venezuelans is a boost to conclude our task, which is to conquer freedom. We are on the threshold of victory, and today more than ever we count on President Trump, the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy." And then she sticks it to the Nobel Peace Prize. At least that's what most of us would like to believe this is. "I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause." So Maria clearly understands that President Trump was skipped intentionally to give it to her, and she had to give honor where it is due. Again, that's what we want to believe just happened. Now, there will be tons of videos on what she did, calling out the Nobel Peace Prize and essentially ripping them a new one, but this is not what this video is about. So the question on everyone's mind is, why would the Nobel Committee skip President Trump, who has been responsible for many peace deals in just 10 months, and move on over to someone who was little known on the world stage, but is the leader of the opposition to the government of Maduro in Venezuela, and awarded her the Peace Prize instead? And this is where things get very strange. This excuse started making the rounds, and it just sounded very fake to people like me.
Yeah, I feel a little dumb about expecting him to get nominated this morning, and it turns out he couldn't. Well, I mean, he could, but it would have been based on anything he did up to January 31st of 2025 of this year. In other words, the deadline had passed. Everything that he accomplished in this enormously successful peace achievement, everything, none of that is eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Now, that sounds very strange, because when you think about the fact that Barack Obama was nominated and awarded the Peace Prize in the very first year of his presidency, and this rule didn't pop up magically when it was time for Barack Obama to receive his Peace Prize for ending no wars and a few other things which we're going to get into in this video. We smell something really rotten, and it isn't good. We have internet sleuths going on AI to ask the question whether Donald Trump was really eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize. And then we have AI. If AI says that this is true, then it must be. And so we see this answer come back on AI saying, yes, Donald Trump has reportedly received nominations for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. How come we're hearing about this for the first time? Months and months and months have passed where people have said they're nominating him for the Peace Prize, and no one from the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, not even AI, said this is for the 2026 cycle of the Nobel Peace Prize. But wait, there's more. Nominations are typically submitted by qualified individuals such as members of the National Assemblies and national governments, cabinet members and ministers of sovereign states, as well as current heads of state, university professors of certain fields like political science, history, law, etc., former Nobel Peace Prize laureates. While the Nobel Committee keeps the complete list of nominees confidential for 50 years, several sources indicate that he has been nominated by various international figures. So we know that all of this has been happening, not a word about the fact that this was for the 2026 cycle until the day the awards were given. And then we're being told, oh, sorry, it was for the 2026 cycle. But everyone knew something was fishy because Barack Obama received his Nobel Peace Prize in year one. So I decided to do some internet sleuthing myself, and I asked Grok what's going on here. And Grok said that the post we just read is a reply to a thread gloating over President Trump's exclusion from the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize awarded to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado on October 10, 2025 for her democracy advocacy. It accurately explains the Nobel timeline. Nominations for the 2025 prize closed on January 31st, 2025, shortly after Trump's January 20 inauguration, limiting eligibility. Now, that would have been nice and all well and good, but I said to myself, but wait, wasn't Obama nominated and awarded within the same year, and he wouldn't have had enough time to have the kind of impact that they claim that he had for winning the award? And so I asked Grok a second question. I said, Grok, when did Obama receive his award? And Grok said Obama received the Nobel Peace Prize on December 10th, 2009. The award was announced by the Norwegian Nobel Committee on October 9th, 2029, recognizing his, wait for it, extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. He accepted the prize in Oslo, Norway during a ceremony that included yada, yada, yada. And the smell got thicker because it was now very clear that there was a problem. Then I asked the big question, when did his nomination get submitted if the nominations usually happen in the previous year and ends in January of the year he was awarded the prize, and which was 2029? And Grok responded, based on the standard Nobel Peace Prize nomination process, nominations for the 2009 award, which Barack Obama received, would have been submitted during the nomination period for that year. The nomination period typically opens in the fall around mid-September of the previous year and closes on January 31st of the award year for the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize. This means the nomination window was from approximately mid-September 2008 to January 31st, 2009. Given that Obama took office on January 20th, 2009, his nomination must have been submitted between mid-September 2008 and January 31st, 2009. Since the nomination process relies on the achievements or efforts recognized up to the closing date, and Obama's nomination was based on his early presidential actions and global diplomatic outreach, e.g., his June 2009 Cairo speech was cited retrospectively. Can you smell the BS yet? It's likely his nomination was submitted in the latter part of 2008 or very early 2009 before his inauguration by a qualified nominator, e.g., a university professor, politician, or former laureate. Anticipating his potential impact, exact submission dates are not publicly disclosed until 50 years later per Nobel Committee rules. So let's get this straight. Barack Obama was presumptively nominated without having achieved anything, and then when the awards were given out, his speech, which was made in September of 2009, was part of the reason the Nobel Committee gave for him to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Piles of BS. In 2009, Obama was awarded the first DEI Nobel Peace Prize, and that is now a fact. And shout out to Dame Scorpio for that piece of artwork. She goes on to say Obama was the first DEI Nobel Peace Prize winner. He was awarded the prize just for being him. President Trump has earned the Peace Prize by every metric. The next nomination period ends next January 2006, and I fully expect the president to win the award a year from now. Otherwise, it will be confirmed to the world that the Nobel Selection Committee is a complete and utter joke. Well, Dame Scorpio, I agree with you, but I already consider them a complete and utter joke. Having seen the hypocrisy of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, I have concluded that there is some foul play going on in the background. Barack Obama did nothing to get his own Nobel Peace Prize, and after months of people speculating that President Trump would get the Nobel Prize, without any feedback from the Nobel Peace Committee, we get this weak response from them about the window having closed. What happened with Barack Obama's award? What happened to the many calls for President Trump's nomination to get the Peace Prize, and there was no one on the internet who would raise their hands to say these nominations are for the next Peace Prize in 2026. Of course, that would immediately raise the question, so how come Barack Obama got his in the first year of his presidency? Now, I would like to say that all of these excuses that are going to start floating around, people surprised that the nominations were for next year and not for the same year, coming up with these BS stories is already old. The mask is off. The Nobel Peace Prize is a sham. Let's move on. After getting the Peace Prize, here are some of Obama's greatest hits. He went on to drop over 200 bombs. He let ISIS run rampant and grow and terrorize the Middle East. He gave Iran the green light to start building nukes. Of course, they called it the Iran deal, but that was essentially them kickstarting their nuclear armament program. And he ordered a drone strike on at least one American citizen, the man of peace. All the excuses that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee have given fall flat when you put their excuses side by side with the Barack Obama situation. I can't wait to hear the ways they're going to twist and contort themselves out of this one. Essentially, the Nobel Peace Prize has joined the ranks of the UN because they've lost their relevance, simply because they've lost their purpose. I decided to do some light reading about the Nobel Peace Prize, and I figured I'll just find out what's the purpose of the Nobel Peace Prize. Why is it so relevant and why is it so important? So the purpose outlined here is that the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded annually to individuals, organizations, or movements that have made significant contributions to promoting peace, resolving conflicts, or advancing human rights as outlined in Alfred Nobel's will. It aims to recognize the efforts towards fostering global harmony and reducing suffering caused by war or oppression. So why did President Obama get this award in his first year? No response. I can't wait for the rewriting of history. I can't wait for them to say, well, we changed the rules magically when it came to Donald Trump. Akama Girl says, the Nobel Peace Prize became worthless and meaningless after Obama got it, and I wholeheartedly agree with her. We have the usual suspects gloating about Trump not getting the Nobel Peace Prize. Here they say Trump says he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, but not everyone agrees, and there's a meme out there with him reaching out to grab it. And we have accounts like Crossroads saying they will never give it to him. He offends the globalists. That's the reality. He does deserve it, but I bet that they never give it to him because it would admit every last bit of the globalist agenda was a con and a sham. Now, many people and many posts online are now saying, well, sorry, try again in 2026. I personally have moved on, and I don't think that President Trump is ever going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. And even if he does, it's already lost the shine that it could have brought if it was awarded to him this year. Plus, there is the Obama question. He gets the award in 2026, it will still look like politics. It will look like the Nobel Peace Prize Committee is banking on President Trump's administration to reduce the relevance of leftist movements globally and therefore free them to to do what they should have done a year before. The other thing is that they might be hoping that there will be yet another candidate that might outshine him. Maybe someone that could be given the Nobel Peace Prize posthumously to yet again skip President Trump and not give him the Peace Prize. The possibilities, honestly, are endless, but even if he does get it, it will be absolutely worthless by the time it's awarded to him. Now, why does all this matter? Why all the ranting and raving about the awards and about Barack Obama? For several reasons. The Nobel Peace Prize is meant to be non-political and non-partisan. It's a unifying award that lets the world come together to acknowledge the achievements towards world peace of one man, and no one has qualified in the last 20 years more than President Trump. If they could award Barack Obama the Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing, then it's very clear that the entire thing has been stained by partisan politics. The second reason why this matters is that the Nobel Peace Prize is meant to have consistent parameters for giving out the award. But when you look at a Barack Obama who got the award for doing nothing, for simply being the first black president, essentially, and you look at President Trump, who has ended 7 wars already, then you know that there's a big issue with the entire situation. This unveils the true state of global politics and global philanthropic achievements or activities, because you see people running these organizations that were set up to bring the world together already politicizing it and making it all about virtue signaling and pandering to the right crowd. Essentially, there are concerns that if they had awarded President Trump the Nobel Peace Prize this year, there would have been riots and demonstrations in the streets. Possibly the lives of the members of the Nobel Peace Prize would have been forfeit, because people would have said, how dare you give this fascist and Nazi the Nobel Peace Prize? We've seen these activities play out before. We've seen them attack conservative justices in the United States for voting in favor of certain conservative values. And what do you think would happen to the Nobel Peace Prize committee members if President Trump, the chief Satan himself, gets awarded the Peace Prize? To be honest, I think they would rather upset people like you and me rather than upsetting the far leftists who are really out there to get anyone who honors people like President Trump. But seriously, in the end, we celebrate with Maria Corina Machado. Okay, she deserves it. Standing up to despots and dictators is not easy. It's not easy to live every day knowing that they could attack you, your family, and take away everything you have. And so she deserves the award. So congratulations, Maria. She dedicated the award to President Trump, which is really cool. But I think that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee missed the bus on this one. And awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump next year will be like me wishing my wife happy anniversary a full month after the event.
Subscribe.
Thanks for watching, liking, and sharing this video. Please subscribe, leave a super thank, and join my membership to keep me doing this. A huge thank you to my supporters listed on the screen. Thank you for your donations and membership.
Thanks for watching.